Alright, what's up everybody? It's been a while since we put out any YouTube content, but we're going to give it another shot here today. So this is the team that I used to make Legend this season, which is Season 12. And the team that we used runs a very, very common core. We have the Swampert Skarmory core, which is generally just one of the strongest cores in the meta. They cover each other's weaknesses just really, really well, and it always makes a lot of sense for them to work together. But we mixed things up a little bit with our third mon. We were looking for something that was going to cover those grass types really well, and also be able to take things like the Altaria out that the Swampert struggles pretty heavily with. And we landed on the Galarian Weezing, and Galarian Weezing was the sleeper MVP for this team. It put in a ton of work for me, was absolutely amazing, had an absolute blast through most of these battles. And it really was just a fantastic push to Legend. Going into this set, we are at 2994, so we just need a 3-2 to be able to reach Legend in this set. And we end up having a fantastic set to get there. So we're going to go ahead and jump into these battles and show off this awesome team. Alright, jumping into this first battle, we have Swampert into Skarmory, which is a pretty solid lead for us. So we are definitely going to be looking to stay in. Opponent immediately swaps into the Medicham, and we counter swap with our Galarian Weezing. Galarian Weezing does very well in this matchup, but we pace to play rough the same time that they get to these Psychics. So if they do bait us, then this matchup can become problematic, but the opponent actually opts to no shield. So I believe in return here, I do decide to give up a shield. This would have been fine for me to no shield, as the double resisted counters wouldn't have been enough to take me out. But a healthy Galarian Weezing honestly still puts in a lot of work. Even here against the Skarmory, with Overheat as an option, we are going to be able to pressure either a lot of health off of the Skarmory or a shield. So we do get this Overheat off here, and we do pull a shield from the Skarmory, and we are going to throw on what I was thinking would be CMP tie, but opponent continues to farm up. And so we do fire off the second Overheat here, doing over half damage to their Skarmory. And then I switch in my own Skarmory, wanting to soak their energy, but they actually bank that energy and bring in a Scrafty. And this is perfectly fine for us. We're going to be able to no-shield everything and pretty comfortably make it to 2 Sky attacks here against the Scrafty. In the 2 shields, this matchup can get a little bit more uncomfortable as Scrafty can pup and really get some damage ramped up against us. But here in the 1s, we are definitely going to be able to handle it just fine. I do opt to no shield here, thinking it's just going to be another pup and we may survive, but they do go for a foul play, and honestly that's fine, because Galarian Weezing does have the potential to just farm down this Scrafty as we wall its moveset, and we know that they just have that Skarmory left, and that one Overheat will take the Skarmory down. I think I decide to shield up here just because a foul play would be pretty close to KOing, and then they snipe me with the Skarmory. I was looking for it, but I waited just a second too long to see the Skarmory come in and end up throwing one turn after them rather than on the CMP tie. But because they did throw their energy, we are able to get to this Hydro Cannon, and Hydro will be taking out the Skarmory, and one Mud Shot finishes off the Scrafty, and that gives us a win to start off the set. Now we jump into battle number 2, where we have the Swampert Mirror. This is where we want to see the Swampert. We're really happy to keep this away from the Galarian Weezing. So I kind of played this out, I think, a little bit differently than I normally would. I build up to the EQ, because EQ does pressure the KO, and then I go for the Hydro Cannon. Opponent also goes for a Hydro. I end up shielding it up, as it would do some big damage. And then we return fire with our own Hydro. We did lose CMP, so that's something for us to keep in mind. And so I build up to the EQ here, and I do throw the EQ. I opt to no shield, thinking they're just going to go for a Hydro. We throw our EQ, and now we either get switch or we get shield advantage, because this EQ will take them out. An opponent does end up shielding up, and 2 more Mud Shots will take us out. So we know that they leave with a Hydro, but we do have a shield advantage here. So we're going to bring in the Skarmory to soak this energy, hoping that Galarian Weezing will be able to sweep the backline. We do take 1 Hydro here. They're going to get to another rather quickly, as they already had that first Hydro before we came in. So they do fire off a second, and we are going to try to get the Sky Attack before they get to a third, and I do 1 extra Air Slash. just to get us as much energy as possible before throwing this Sky Attack to hopefully help us handle whatever's in back a little bit better. They bring in the Sableye. Because we were quick to switch out, I am going to outpace them to this Play Rough, as it takes us 7 Fairy Winds, I believe, to get to the Play Rough, and it takes them 9 Shadow Claws to get to the return. So we know that we're able to outpace just enough there, and then we will be able to also outpace this Skarmory to an Overheat, and a non-debuffed Overheat almost one-shots the Skarmory. They're going to have to throw energy here if they want to take out my Galarian Weezing. They attempt to commit to the farm down so that they can deal with my Skarmory, and that allows us to make it to a second Overheat, which will absolutely take out the Skarmory, giving us win number 2 on the set. So one more win in this set, and we will be Legend. And we get Swampert into Golbat, which is a pretty good lead for us. This is definitely where we want to see the Golbat. We handle it pretty well here. They come in with an Alolan Raticate, so we bring in our Galarian Weezing. Galarian Weezing has a pretty solid matchup here. We do have to worry somewhat about return since it is a purified Alolan Raticate, but Crunch would not do a lot of damage. So we land the Play Rough. I believe I opt to no shield here. No, I do respect the return, and we do successfully shield the return. So that's a pretty good shield, and that will let us farm all the way down. Now the Golbat most likely comes back in. Golbat is not a great matchup for the Galarian Weezing, but these Overheats will still apply some pressure here. So we're going to farm up a little extra. We're going to get to this Overheat and go ahead and fire it off and see if we're going to pull a shield or not. Opponent does opt to shield up that first Overheat. We will make it to a second in time, though, which is amazing. This will allow us to get a good chunk of damage off. That is a double debuffed Overheat, still doing about half health to the Golbat. And they're going to be pressured to throw this energy so that we don't reach another Overheat. It is a Poison Fang, just barely doesn't KO, so they will get one more wing attack, but that's perfectly fine. I believe we come in Skarmory here with the idea of soaking the energy. We know we can tank a Shadow Ball pretty comfortably. No, I do come in with the Swampert, and we're going to let this go. We can also tank a Shadow Ball here. As you can see, it brings us to about half, but I think we are good to get off this Hydro. This will pressure their last shield or go ahead and take down this Golbat. They're just going to let the Golbat go, and that's perfectly fine. We see an Obstagoon come in, and Skarmory has a pretty decent matchup against the Obstagoon. We can tank these Night Slashes very well. We will be taking neutral damage from the counters, but they're also taking neutral Air Slash damage, and we should be able to make it to 2 Sky Attacks here after shielding once. I probably let this Night Slash go as well, as we can still survive one more, and if they boost, we wouldn't be able to survive the next. So I believe we just fire off this Sky Attack on good timing. That way we only give them 1 free turn, and then we're going to look to reach the next Sky Attack. We get there shortly before we do end up going down to these counters. And now our concern is, do they make it to the double Night Slash before we make it to a Hydro? Opponent throws a move here. If they're at the back-to-back, we lose. We are 1 Mud Shot away from our Hydro. And we end up getting the CMP tie to the second Night Slash that will pick us up the win. And that does put us at Legend Elo for sure after this set, but we still have the rest of the set to play out with this team. So we're going to keep going and see how it goes. So we have Swampert into Nidoqueen. This is an amazing lead for us. Swampert does very, very well into the Nidoqueen. So I imagine our opponent's going to switch out immediately, and they do into the Meta Jam. So this time we opt to stay in and throw a Hydro, because as I said, it gets a little risky with the Galarian Weezing if they do bait. So we throw this Hydro, and since we pull a shield, now we're not as worried about being baited on the Galarian Weezing. So I'm much more comfortable bringing the Galarian Weezing in, up a shield, shielding up a potential Psychic, and looking to take our opponent out. I believe I'm going to overfarm here since they did just throw the Psychic. I'm going to farm up to 1 before they would get to the Psychic. I could have done 1 more here and comfortably gone for the CMP tie since Galarian Weezing would win the CMP tie. But I opted to throw 1 sooner, and that's fine. And then we're going to look to overfarm a bit here, and Overheat is an incredible move. Galarian Weezing Overheat is going to do a ton of damage to the Shadow Nidoqueen, taking it deep into the red, despite being in not a fantastic matchup. Opponent still has not thrown energy, which will allow us to make it to a second Overheat. And opponent is going to shield that Overheat up and commit to the Poison Jab down. Now here, our Skarmory walls this. The Earth Power will do a little bit of chip damage, but it's not really enough for us to worry about. So we're going to come in with a Skarmory, and we're just going to soak all of this energy. There's no need for us to particularly shield anything. They're going to go for a Poison Fang first, and then an Earth Power, since they know that they'll make it to 1 Poison Fang and 1 Earth Power. So this is the right order for them to throw in. And even debuff that Earth Power doesn't even bring us into the yellow. So out comes a Lickitung. We are debuffed, so we don't want to tank any moves or too much damage here. So I'm just going to go straight for this Brave Bird. And then I believe we're going to switch straight into the Swampert afterwards. I'm confident that they're only going to make it to 1 move. They can't get to a Body Slam and a Power Whip here. So I just shield up the first and attempt to get to this Hydro Cannon to take out the Lickitung. And we will get to the Hydro. This Hydro should be enough to finish off the bulky Lickitung and pick up yet another win. So we are 4-0 in this set at this point now. We just look for the 5-0. We're going to see what we can do to close this out and have a perfect set. Swampert into Lickitung. Not an amazing matchup for us, but Lickitung usually has 2 fighters behind it, which is pretty good for us. And we do see the first fighter come out here in Surfetched. I bank some energy and then catch on the Galarian Weezing, as Galarian Weezing resists all of the moves from the Surfetched, plus these counters are double resisted. So this is a pretty good matchup for us, though Surfetched does do quite a bit of damage, so it's still a little concerning. Not as comfortable as we'd like it to be. We see the Leaf Blade come through there that is also going to be resisted thanks to the poison typing. I do throw 1 before they make it to their next move to go ahead and pressure this shield. An opponent does decide to shield up, so this is going to let us potentially shield once and farm down here. So we do give up the shield, and we are going to commit to the farm down of the Surfetch. So we leave even shields with a loaded Galarian Weezing and are able to flip switch. I'm still thinking that it's potentially Metacham in back here, since Metacham and Lickitung are very common cores. And I try to get to that overheat and just barely don't make it. It probably would have been best for me to go for a double overheat in that case to get the most damage off. But I think Play Rough plus Overheat would have also been really, really good. We just couldn't quite make it. I do opt to bring the Skarmory back into the Lickitung, as we know that the Play Roughs from this the Power Whip from this Lickitung will do a ton of damage to our Swampert, and they did leave with quite a bit of energy, so we don't really want to bring our Swampert in here. So we are going to tank these Body Slams very, very well. We look to overfarm a bit. I'm going to tank another Body Slam here. We do decide to let this go. I still think it could be the Medi in back, but with a Sky Attack loaded, we have actually back-to-back Sky Attacks. And that puts us in good shape. I opted to switch out here into our Swampert rather than throw that Sky Attack. And now we are just going to look to spam Hydros. I now commit to the EQ, because EQ is enough to KO here. So my opponent either has to shield the EQ, at which point we can double Sky Attack, or our opponent no-shields the EQ, and then the EQ would just take them out. So we go straight for the EQ. Opponent does opt for the no-shield, so that EQ will KO, and now we can either make it to this Hydro before they are able to throw their energy, or they have to throw their energy here. We would make it to the Sky Attack, so opponent does end up giving up that last shield, and we get to another Hydro just in time. Even if they didn't quite make it to that Hydro, or if we didn't quite make it to that Hydro, we would have still gotten to the Sky Attack on Skarmory, and Skarmory does win CMP against the Licky, and that seals the 5-0 for us. So that was an amazing set of battles. Really, the Galarian Weezing has performed so well for me in the Open Great League. I can highly, highly recommend that you guys do build your own Galarian Weezing. I think this team is a lot of fun. It worked incredibly well for me, but I have not heard that anyone else has quite had some success with it since trying it. I do stream most, if not all, of my battles over on my Twitch channel. You can find me at Twitch TV/King Alexander, the same username as my YouTube. If you guys are interested in interacting with me live or seeing these teams a little bit earlier and more consistently, as my YouTube content isn't consistent just yet, but we're going to keep working on that. And if you have watched to the end of the video, feel free to like and subscribe. It does help out the channel a lot, and I would greatly appreciate it. And until then, I'll see you all next time. Take care.